So I've been spending a good portion of the day, specifically earlier today, playing Anthem. I picked it up this morning, and yeah, I'm starting to understand some of the reviews in it. Now, I still have more to play, as I'm only like 4 or 5 hours or so in, so I still have plenty to play of it, but it feels very similar to Warframe right now, and I didn't really get too into Warframe, so I'm not feeling Anthem as much as I would hope to be as a game from Bioware, and there is a bit of a concern going around right now, and I see it myself. I started to see it weeks ago when on the build-up to Anthem, because there wasn't as much hype around the game as I kind of thought there'd be back at last E3 when people were blown away by what they showed and everything. It seemed like this was going to be a big thing for Bioware and EA to put out there, but then we heard more and more as we got closer and closer, and, well, now we're sitting here at a point where there is some serious uncertainty around Bioware, and a lot of that has to do with EA's past, where they would shut down studios. We saw them pretty much dismantle Visceral over their Star Wars game that they were attempting to make that didn't kind of fit into the live services that they're pushing right now, and to be honest, I don't think Bioware is set up to be that live service company. I think they are much more suited to developing and creating a lore based around a single player style game. I think they've kind of gone downhill since they've had to make these multiplayer live service games, and Anthem seems to be kind of like their low point right now. And when I mean like low point, think about Mass Effect Andromeda and how many memes and how crazy that was and how many people just destroyed that game. It's worse. Yeah, I can't believe it myself. This Anthem release is actually worse than Mass Effect Andromeda. So here we are with the Metacritic for Anthem, and it has continued to go down. I remember yesterday at the start of the day, it was at like 67. More and more reviews have started to come in, and this is what happens to these live services. People hope that there is some sort of day one patch. They hope that there is something that's going to fix the issues from a gameplay level. Now, when I played the game, the gunplay and everything felt fine, but as I started to kind of explore the world, I realized there wasn't as much stuff to do in it as I was thinking there would be. And that's what I'm seeing a lot of people point out who have got to the end game, that there really isn't a ton there on the build up to the end game, and it's not even a super long game compared to what you would think for a live service like this. For example, when The Division 2 comes out, that seems to have the makeup to be a kind of a better live service game overall than Anthem, and I feel like a lot of people are going to go to that instead. The flying's kind of cool in the game, though, too. I will say that, although overheating is really annoying. But the Metacritic has not been kind to this game, and some people don't care about Metacritic. However, I will tell you, these companies do. They base bonuses on it, right? Performance goals. This number means more than you would think. I mean, look back to what happened to Obsidian and Bethesda, where money was withheld for New Vegas because they missed it by like a point. So it's not uncommon for Metacritic to determine some people's livelihoods here. Jobs and even studio closures can happen because of this. So yes, a 61 on Metacritic right now, and it has been dropping continuously. There is a good chance that Anthem ends up either at the same score or below Crackdown 3 on Metacritic, and that is something. This is going to be a kind of a bad spot on Bioware at this point, and there is some concern because, again, we know EA is kind of trigger happy with the closures at times. They have no problem absorbing a company. I mean, look what they did to Visceral, because they just didn't seem to like the Star Wars idea that they were going with, which has been described as Star Wars mixed with Uncharted, which sounds awesome based on what we've had so far from EA with Battlefront. That sounds like that would have been a nice change of pace. Every game doesn't need to be a live service because we, as gamers, only have so much time. So here we are now with Bioware attempting to make this, and it hasn't worked. And I just talked about how we, of course, had Mass Effect Andromeda, and you would think that it couldn't have gotten any worse than that. Mass Effect Andromeda scored a 71 on Metacritic for the PlayStation 4. I think it might have even been a little higher on the PC, and I'll admit they have gone back and done work to it since it came out with these patches and everything. They had an Xbox One X patch. So they've done work to it as they've gone along. However, Mass Effect Andromeda was enough to get an entire studio absorbed. If you remember, we had Bioware, Montreal, and that was actually absorbed by EA Motive, or their Motive studio. Motive works on Battlefront 2. They're also apparently working on an unannounced or unnamed Star Wars game right now, as well as I'm sure EA is going to be pushing heavily with their Star Wars license that they won't have, I guess, in 5 or 6 years unless Disney re-ups them, which they might. Disney apparently is happy, which is insane to me because they haven't done great with the Star Wars license at this time, but maybe Respawn will do something about it. Anyway, this was enough to get BioWare Montreal completely absorbed by EA Motive. And if you really look at BioWare's history, they don't mesh well with what EA is doing right now, which is that live services push. Keep in mind, BioWare made some awesome games back in the day. Mass Effect 1 and 2 are awesome. Mass Effect 3 had a lot of controversy behind it, but 1 and 2 was really good. And then, of course, Knights of the Old Republic. Do I even need to introduce that at all? Knights of the Old Republic was awesome. You could still play it right now on your Xbox One X, Game Pass, everything. It's all there. Hey, if it comes to the Switch, you can play Knights of the Old Republic on your Switch. That would be crazy. But yes, BioWare has done some really good things in the past, but they've also had studios closed down, or subsidiaries just kind of moved around and closed. Here's a nice little history of it that was actually done up, which is interesting to see. Like right now they have BioWare Austin, but they've been kind of quiet. I feel like they are currently playing around with Dragon Age right now in the background as kind of a smaller crew, as the bigger crew is working on Anthem. There was word that they were pulling people off of that project to work on Anthem, which is weird because Anthem was apparently started development-wise in 2012, so I don't know what was going on here when it launched with the kind of content that it did, because the game itself looks good. It does. In fact, it's some of the best visuals I've seen so far on a console, next to like Red Dead Redemption, for example, too. But it once you kind of get past that, it starts to kind of get a bit repetitive on it so far. I'll play more into it, but even I'm kind of like getting already burned out on it, which is weird. And I'm like about to go back to Kingdom Hearts. So interesting there. But we just talked about BioWare Montreal. Then we have BioWare San Francisco, which developed Mirror's Edge. So there you go. Dragon Age Legends. That was closed. BioWare Mythic, that was in Virginia. And Mythic Entertainment, they were closed completely in 2014. Victory Games, Waystone Games, BioWare Sacramento, that was renamed EA Capital Games in 2014. So BioWare hasn't exactly been growing since EA has taken over. And here's the kicker about Anthem. I can't imagine that game was cheap to make. So EA set an expectation for Anthem sales. And when EA sets expectations, you don't really want to let them down unless they themselves messed it up. And to be honest, I look at Anthem and they didn't give it the Battlefield 5 treatment, which was, getting their own way, essentially. They put it out there. Yes, it has microtransactions in it. It's a live service game and it's all cosmetic stuff. And that's kind of what they wanted to do. And that's a shame, but it doesn't necessarily affect the core gameplay, I guess. It's just more annoying to have. So here's the thing. They want 6 million copies sold in 6 weeks. By the end of March, Anthem has to have sold 6 million copies. I don't know how the subscription service is going to work into that because they're very, very poorly designed release schedule where you could play it for 10 hours on the Xbox if you were signed up to EA Access. If you had like their Origin Premiere on the PC, you could start playing it a week before its supposed release. It just came out today, so I went and picked it up. It's all over the place for releases, and that hasn't hurt or helped at all. It has hurt it. Usually if you have one massive push and it's like, it's out now, marketing, everything, it helps a lot more, to get one big burst of people playing, because this is a live service. It's going to require people to continue playing it. Monthly active users, which you see show up in a lot of these investors briefing, very important. And I'm concerned Anthem is not going to have that for very long or to the standard that EA needs it. And if BioWare costs EA a lot of money when it comes to this, and they don't fit in with this live services kind of, I don't want to say fad, because I guess it's not as much of a fad as I said when I put it on Twitter, but if they don't fit in with that, why would EA keep them around? That's my question. Why wouldn't they absorb them into a studio that at least has kind of the work along with that, right? Like Battlefront 2 has pretty much been completely turned into a live service. Well, the Battlefront series, and they have the experience to do that, and they could probably use some extra hands for the next Star Wars game that they'll be developing. So it does concern me, because I think now that Anthem's done, they don't necessarily need a full crew to keep it going. You know, like developing DLC and content for it going forward won't be as hard as building it from the ground up. So I have a bit of concern around what's going to happen to Bioware. And to be honest, if they're putting out games like Anthem that are going to be received like this and cost the amount of money that it does, maybe Bioware shouldn't be making live service games. Maybe if EA either absorbs them or closes them, and a lot of the former people go and make their own studio, or THQ Nordic comes in and hires them up for a new studio or something, maybe that would be better, because I think what they should be doing right now, and people can disagree with me on this, they should be making a new Knights of the Old Republic, and it should just be all single player, and they should just work to sell 25 million copies of it. But we know that that's not what EA wants. There are too many live services that are showing up, and I think that hurts the market. And I think right now BioWare is trying to fit into an environment that they don't fit into at all. So unfortunately, I think that means the studio is going to end up paying. But let me know what you guys think down below about this. If you were a fan of BioWare for a while, because they've been making games for quite a bit, so you might have played some of their old games, and going from Knights of the Old Republic back on the original Xbox to now, it might be a bit sad to see. But let me know what you guys think down below. Make sure you like the video if you liked it, dislike if not. And hey, if you have Anthem as well, whether it's on the PS4 or the Xbox or PC, let me know what you think about it as well, because I still need to keep playing it to get my thoughts kind of together, and I'm sure we'll talk about it a bit on the Spawncast. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.